Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So we have conspiracy theorists, propagandists, Rachel Maddow. So a few days ago, Rachel Maddow did a story where she mentions Sane progressive. It was an absolutely ridiculous story among a bunch of ridiculous stories. And to be honest, I wasn't really going to do it, but I kind of felt bad for Debbie on this one. Look, Debbie is a credible, earnest person, and to have her name uttered by that yuck mouth, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So this is essentially the same theme of story that she's been running for the past 2 or 3 months now. Short on evidence, large on assertions, innuendo, conspiracies. Let's hear it. And look, the sad part about this is, it's easy to debunk. Like, it's not even all that difficult to debunk. It within a minute or two, you can be like, oh, well, that's not really truthful. Yeah, that's a little sketchy. I mean, it's insane. I'm actually going to go through this, and I'm going to stop it at certain points to show the ridiculousness of the story, because it is in fact pretty ridiculous. And I am absolutely sorry, Debbie. She's not going to apologize to you. I'm going to profusely apologize for having to deal with hearing your name coming out of her mouth. So.
June and July, we know that the Russians had shown their hand, that was not just an intelligence operation. They were not just stealing information from the Democratic Party so they could get American secrets, so they could get secret American information and use it within their own government for their own purposes. No, by June and July, they showed what they actually wanted to do with that information was that they wanted to release it publicly in the United States. They wanted to weaponize it. Release it back into our country in a way designed to inflict maximum harm on Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. That's what they...
Have you noticed, every time she does these stories, she never exactly tells you what the news was. She never brings it up. Oh, Russia released news in the United States to attack Hillary Clinton. Oh, wow, okay. What exactly was the news? And why was it an attack on Hillary Clinton? Was it true? Are you certain that Russia sent it? Well, we believe Russia sent it. Oh, so you don't really know that Russia sent it when you keep implying that Russia sent it. Also, Rachel, Miss Maddow, what were the stories? Assuming for the moment, let's say you're right. Let's say Russia did send it. It was true and accurate information. That's the ridiculousness of this. Rachel Maddow is upset that somebody cheated her candidate with details of truthful information showing that her candidate was cheating another candidate. I've made this point before. If Rachel Maddow is right, if this release, whoever released it, if this release was so damning and it swung the election, then understand the implication. The implication is that the American public looked at the information and said, holy shit, have you seen what Hillary Clinton was doing in that State Department? Have you seen what the Democratic Party was doing to Sanders? These people were cheating left and right. These people are absolutely corrupt. I can't bring myself to vote for that woman. All of this information says she was lying about everything. Whether it was the TPP, whether it was Wall Street speeches, whether it was saying, I say certain things in public and I say other things in private to my donors. The point I'm making to you is the information that was released was true. That information impeached her testimony. The fact that the information impeached her testimony meant that the information was relevant to the public. It's as if somebody comes out, lies persistently, and because you come out with true information, they say, he's weaponized this information because he's telling the truth about my candidate. How dare he tell the truth about my candidate? It's not the American public's business to know who they're voting for. This is an insane argument. It just seems absolutely absurd to me, and yet, with a straight face, she comes out and makes the case every night. Just so we can put a fine point on it. This came out in The Intercept. I read this story the other day, but just to impeach this testimony, because it's, again, pretty ridiculous and easily debunked. The latest, this is Glenn Greenwald, by the way. The latest official to throw cold water on MSNBC's lead circus is President Obama's former acting CIA chief, Michael Morrell. What makes him particularly notable in this context is that Morrell was Clinton's most vocal CIA surrogate. In August, he was not only endorsed Clinton in the pages of the New York Times, but also became the first high-ranking official to explicitly accuse Trump of disloyalty, claiming, in the intelligence business, we will say that Putin had recruited Trump as an unwitting agent of the Russian Federation. On Wednesday night, Morrell appeared at an intelligence community forum to cast doubt on allegations that members of the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. On the question of Trump's campaign conspiring with Russia here, there is smoke, but there is no fire at all, he said, adding there is no little campfire, there's no little candle, there's no spark, and there's a lot of people looking for it. Obama's former chief also cast serious doubts on the credibility of the infamous, explosive dossier, originally published by BuzzFeed, saying that its author, Christopher Steele, paid intermediaries to talk to the sources for it. The dossier, he said, doesn't take you anywhere, I don't think. Morrell's comments echo categorical remarks by Obama's top national security chief, James Clapper, who told Meet the Press last week that during the time he was Obama's DNI, he saw no evidence to support claims of Trump-Russia conspiracy. We had no evidence of such collusion, Clapper said, unequivocally. Unlike Morrell, who left the official CIA position in 2013 but remains very integrated in the intelligence community, Clapper was Obama's DNI until just 7 weeks ago, leaving on January 20th. Perhaps the most revealing of all, the Democrats on the Senate Intelligence Committee, charged with investigating these matters, who recently told BuzzFeed how petrified they were that the Democratic base, what the Democratic base would do if they did not find evidence of collusion, as they now suspect will likely be the case. There's a tangible frustration over what one official called wildly inflated expectations surrounding the panel's fledgling investigation. BuzzFeed's Ali Watkins wrote, moreover, several committee sources grudgingly said it feels as though the investigation will be seen as a sham if the Senate does not find a silver bullet connecting Trump and Russia intelligence operatives. One member told Watkins, I don't think the collusions are going to meet people's expectations. If the people who put the story out is now backtracking on the story, what does it mean that Rachel Maddow has been harping on the story for the past 3 months? That's all I'm saying. If she's making this case that Trump and Russia colluded to rob her dear crook, Hillary Clinton, of the presidential election, alright, show your evidence. My evidence is that the people who put these original stories out, the people who were shills for Hillary Clinton, particularly in the intelligence community, people who had no issue in the normal circumstances lying through their teeth, coming out and saying, yeah, we need to back off on this. There's not really much evidence. We need to start talking about something else. They better get that news to Maddow. They better get that news to Maddow, because she's going full on it, all in. All in. She's amazing. Not in a good way.
With DC leaks and Guccifer 2.0 and the secret stuff they stole from the DNC and from the Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. But now we can also tell you that they were also playing another card at the same time. And it's one
that
a lot of people watching this show right now experienced in real time, and you may not have known what it was when it happened to you. Jason Cherkis and Ryan Grimm, two reporters, Huffington Post, they've done some great work on this recently, and we've been able to add this to the timeline, in part because of stuff we've been able to figure out, but also because of what they've reported.
She said, we've been... Oh, she means her? Her conspiracy theories? Is that what she's talking about? She was able to figure out?
So, again, Kremlin here, February.
This should be good.
Kremlin threatening / promising that they're going nuclear in their information war. March, their GRU attacks the Democratic Party and steals all their data. We see all the fruits of that by the summer. But that spring, April and May, the other thing that they started doing was a huge, industrial-sized bot attack.
Bot attack?
This was not a joke.
It wasn't a joke?
Automated social media bots and what appeared to be paid operatives in Russia and other countries, specifically to target Bernie supporters.
All right, let me write this down. Operatives to specifically target Bernie supporters. Now, I'm a Bernie supporter, so I'm imagining that the Red Menace was targeting me also, like they were targeting Donna Brazile. I'm unaware of that. Now, what I am aware of, and look, I don't necessarily doubt that there were bot attacks going on during the campaign. This came on the Hill. Hillary's PAC spends $1 million to correct commenters on Reddit and Facebook. Hillary Clinton's, whatever you want to call it, her super PAC, spent $1 million to buy paid trolls to go online and harass people online who said something bad about Hillary Clinton. The sadness of this, the patheticness of it, can't be overstated. Do you remember Hillary Clinton had this rally where they were like, Hillary Clinton, fire! Hillary Clinton, fire! And for the most part, there was nobody saying fire. There was nobody, for the most part, even there. Tim Kaine, I remember, had a rally where he, for the most part, canceled because he couldn't get anybody to show up, to care that Tim Kaine was in the race. I would imagine that people didn't even know who Tim Kaine was. This is kind of pathetic. So Sanders, for the most part, had so much loyalty among the people who were supporting him, who was stumping for him, who was out there battling for him. They just naturally wanted to espouse what they felt about Sanders and what they thought this country could be. Hillary Clinton could not find people to do that on her behalf. And so she did what any good capitalist would do and just bought them. She bought trolls. She bought internet trolls to go and harass people. That's an amazing thing. Rachel Maddow was talking about quote-unquote bots attacking people. Her candidate, the candidate that she wanted to win, literally spent $1 million on people to harass other people on social media. So, a pro-Hillary Clinton super PAC is pledging to spend $1 million to push back against users on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram. Correct the Records, barrier breakers project boasts in a press release that it has already addressed more than 5,000 people that have personally attacked Hillary Clinton on Twitter. I love this euphemism. They have already, quote-unquote, addressed more than 5,000 people. Essentially, anybody who said anything bad about Hillary Clinton, we've already used the money that we were paid to go out and harass people who said something about our candidate. That is an amazing thing. This explains why my inbox turned to cancer on Tuesday, wrote user Okarzi. Been a member of Reddit for almost 4 years and never experienced anything like it. In fact, in all my years on the internet, I've never experienced anything like it. Due to FEC loopholes, the Sunlight Foundation's Libby Watson found this year that Correct the Record can openly coordinate with the Clintons campaign, despite rules that typically disallow political campaigns from working directly with super PACs. Super PACs aren't supposed to coordinate with candidates. The whole reasoning behind Supreme Court decisions to Citizens United rests on PACs being independent. But Correct the Record claims it can coordinate. Watson told the Daily Beast it's not totally clear what their reasoning is. It seems to be materially posted on the internet for free, like blogs. Doesn't count as an independent expenditure. Watson previously worked at Brock's Media Matters for America, where their whole mission is to debunk conservative misinformation. A lot of that ends up being defending Hillary Clinton but says she's never seen anything like this initiative. Rachel Maddow is complaining about some kind of agency, some foreign menace using bots to attack Bernie supporters with misinformation. Hillary Clinton paid $1 billion in some level of illegal coordination with her super PAC. Paid $1 million to get online and harass people because she couldn't find people who cared enough to support her on their own. That's just pathetic. That's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic. I'm not sure what's more pathetic. The fact that she's bringing this up in the story, or the fact that Hillary Clinton did this. I don't know which one. And by the way, one more thing. This is a story from the Hill. I'm sorry, that was Daily Beast. This one is from the Hill. Fake news did not change the result of the 2016 election. Study. So, fake news did not change the result of the 2016 presidential election, according to a study by researchers at Stanford and New York University released Thursday. The study shows that fake news stories favorable to Republican nominee Donald Trump far outnumbered similar stories by Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. But only 8% of voters actually read those stories, and even fewer recalled or believed what they were reading, researchers said. Favorable but fake Trump news was shared 30 million times during the campaign, while fake pro-Clinton news was shared about 7 million times. Our data suggests that social media were not the most important source of election news, and even most widely circulated news stories were seen by only a small fraction of Americans. Lead researchers Hunt Alcott and Matthew Gingwat wrote, in order for fake news to have a real effect on the election, it would have to have been as persuasive as 36 television ads, the study concludes. Fake news became so prominent in 2016, PolitiFact named it the Lie of the Year, a dubious award reserved for humans. Because its powerful symbolism in an election year filled with rampant and outrageous lying, PolitiFact named fake news the 2016 winner. If fake news... Rachel Maddow is literally doing an entire story where she's making this argument that Russia, even though she can't prove that it was Russia, that Russia essentially descended on the American election, and descending on the American election with true information about corruption and about the Democratic Party cheating one of the candidates running in their own election and defrauding millions of people supporting that particular candidate. The story that she's talking about with fake news, she's blowing it up. And yet this study has been out for months, saying very clearly, Stanford and New York University, fake news had no impact on this election. Who do you trust? The scientists at Stanford and New York, or the person shilling for the Democratic Party?
Took the real split in the Democratic Party between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and they blew it up into what they hoped would be an unbreachable chasm. One of the administrators at a Bernie Sanders Facebook page in San Diego described it like this to Graham Cherkis at the Huffington Post, quote, people with no apparent ties to California were friending his San Diego Facebook page and sharing links from unfamiliar sites full of anti-Hillary Clinton propaganda. The stories they posted were not the normal complaints. These stories alleged that Hillary Clinton had murdered her political opponents and used body doubles. When John Mattis, the administrator on that Bernie site in San Diego, when John Mattis started tracking down the site's domain registrations, the trail led to places like Macedonia
Come on.
and Albania. And it wasn't just...
Just so we're clear, Macedonia and Albania, I don't think that's Russia. I don't think that's Russia. Also, we also need to be clear. When WikiLeaks released that story, talking about the CIA hacking tools, And again, I'm not saying the CIA hacked anybody. I'm making this point that the CIA lost those tools. Those tools are available for pretty much anybody. In losing those tools, however, the most important aspect of it was that the CIA could mimic attacks from other countries or other signatures, meaning certain organizations may use certain attacks. The CIA could mimic those attacks and mimic those signatures. The point I'm getting at is not so much that the CIA hacked it. I'm making the point that if the CIA had that capability, are you telling me that other agencies, other state actors, hell, other private actors, don't have the same capabilities? The point I'm making to you is, Rachel Maddow is assiduously asserting that Russia was the culprit. What I'm asking is, where is her smoking gun evidence proving such? The report that she put out, or that she was talking about, just said the agencies believed it. That agency put out no real information. For the most part, the agency said, hey, trust us. It's not enough. It's not enough at all. The reason it's enough for Maddow is because she needs to find a reason why her candidate lost. And it is far easier to talk about all this other stuff than the pravity of that particular party. Not just that. The things that went on in the primary that she, for the most part, gave a complete blank pass to. The things that were in those Podesta emails for Hillary Clinton that she gave a complete pass to. You don't think it's strange that the only thing she wants to talk about is Russia and Trump, and doesn't really want to engage in any honest dialogue about the failure of the last 8 years? Or for that matter, all the crime and corruption that was literally surrounding Hillary Clinton. Pay-for-play politics, monetizing the State Department, all this weird stuff. She doesn't bring this up at all. Russia and Trump? Oh yeah. This other stuff never comes up. It's amazing.
San Diego, by mid-May, an administrator of a Facebook site for Bernie Sanders supporters in California, Bay Area for Bernie, was setting off her own alert about many, if not all, of the Bernie groups being inundated, quote, with bogus users.
And you know the sad part about this? Based on her own theory of the case, these groups were coming out, warning their people, hey, this looks a little weird to me. Based on her own theory of the case, they were essentially telling the people that, hey, these stories look a little bogus. It also kind of misses the point that the study made. People didn't believe it. Most people didn't believe it. Most people who were earnest did not look at that story and say Hillary Clinton killed a man and says, oh, Hillary Clinton murdered a guy. Those stories had little to no effect at all. And yet, she's literally doing an entire show where she's bringing up this idea that they weaponize fake news. At the very least, shouldn't you determine whether or not the weapon actually worked? There's a big difference between a machete and a pop gun. This is ridiculous.
At Sane Progressive, they were posting the same warning. At Bernie Sanders is my hero.
I'm sorry, Debbie. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I think Rachel Maddow is an alcoholic. I said it. I think Rachel Maddow is an alcoholic. I think Hillary that loss drove her to drown her sorrows in Jack Daniels and pork rinds. I can come to no other conclusion. Based upon her standard of evidence, she doesn't require much evidence, so I don't see why I'm going to be bound by the same level of evidence. And looking at these particular stories, I think there is evidence for some level of intoxication just before she gets on this channel and does these shows. Every night, Trump Putin, Trump Russia, Trump Iranian terrorists, Trump doesn't pay his taxes. Then, following that one up with the indignity of showing Trump paying his taxes. This is comical and ridiculous. And at the same time, pathetic. It really is. They weaponize news by releasing factual information. She's saying this with a straight face. I have to assume either she's fall down drunk, or that she's just an absolute shill, and that she's paid to give propaganda out and con her audience. I don't think she's an alcoholic for real. I actually think it's the latter. She is a paid shill for the Democratic Party that puts out a line. And I've said this before. She's a con. I mean, look. Every so often, some of the information that Rachel Maddow puts out is true. The case that I've always made in this case was the arguments that she made are cut a very specific way. Continuously, over and over and over again. If you're watching her show, and every night the show is exactly the same. Republicans are doing this. Republicans are the problem. Republicans are trying to eat your babies. They're trying to sell your kids into some kind of bondage. Republican Party. The Democratic Party is there to protect you. They're virtuous. They're heroic. They're there to be a hedge against this evil and bad and batshit crazy Republican Party. Now, if you're doing that constantly, over and over again, night after night after night, if you have somebody who watches your show persistently, do you really think that person is going to have any context whatsoever? A, it's an outright lie. The Democratic Party is as much of a scam as the Republican Party is as much of a scam. B, it gives no context. Meaning, she never goes into stories about Democratic corruption. And Lord knows there's a lot of it. She doesn't do stories about contradictions in behavior of Democrats. Lord knows there's a lot of it. Even if there was any level of integrity, Rachel Maddow would have actually went into that story showing Hillary Clinton monetizing the State Department, taking millions of dollars, and then giving favors to other countries. Now, she's going to do some story at some point talking about Donald Trump monetizing the presidency. If there's any level of integrity, if there's even a shred of integrity, if you're going to call one on that, which, look, Donald Trump monetizing the presidency is a big damn deal. But how are you okay with her monetizing the State Department? That's just as bad. You're taking money in private enterprise and you're turning around and giving favors, whether it's money, weapons, access to other states or other nations, including Saudi Arabia, which Hillary Clinton herself said was a terrorist state. At no point did that stop her from taking their money, and at no point did it stop her from giving them weapons. You think Rachel Maddow will have that conversation? Not at all. Not at all. Look, I understand why Maddow does it. She's a paid shill. She's the Glenn Beck of MSNBC. She's paid to toe a particular line. I need to understand why her supporters and why the Democratic Party supporters, why they toe this line. Understand, what I'm asking is, what gimmick do you use to ignore the contradictions in your belief systems, in your reality? Meaning, if you have a candidate, and that candidate say he's going to be hope and change and he's going to revamp politics as we know it. Politics is different now because I'm Obama. It's going to be different. He gets in office. He gets a Nobel Peace Prize at that. That Nobel Peace Prize winner expands Bush's wars from 2 to 8 without any constitutional authority whatsoever. He's murdering civilians in the thousands. Explain to me how that's change. Where's the hope in murdering civilians? Where's the hope in literally going into countries with a terrorism campaign, at least terrorism by our own definition of terrorism, with no constitutional authorization at all to do so? Why are you okay with that? You didn't like it when Bush did it. Why are you okay when Obama does it? Now again, I understand why Rachel Maddow is okay with it. She's a shill. Why are you okay with it? Just as a person who's looking at this and wait a minute, that's a bit of a contradiction. What about taking a bunch of money from Wall Street in regards to millions of dollars and then turning around and protecting Wall Street after they defrauded and drained trillions of dollars from this nation? What about giving those banks all that money while at the same time letting the homeowners go bust and lose their homes? What about getting a letter from Citigroup that essentially gave them a list of people to hold or put into his office, his cabinet, And Obama put the majority of those people in his cabinet. Now, certainly, if you have any shred of integrity, any level of honesty, you have to look at that and say, well, wait a minute, that's a contradiction. This person is saying one thing, but this person is doing something completely different. Wouldn't the operative question in that case be, well, wait a minute, why? Why does this contradiction exist? Why do we have a Democratic president who talks about hope and change and social upliftment and helping the middle class and stomping for the workers, all this stuff, all these nice, vague, progressive-ish ideas? And yet, when he leaves office, his policies essentially gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. The TPP that he was pushing was going to gut environmental regulations that he's supposed to care about. It was going to gut workers. It was going to allow multinational corporations to essentially run roughshod over the U.S. government, making our laws subordinate to the whims of those corporations. Is that a contradiction or not? And if that is a contradiction, shouldn't you ask the honest question of, well, wait a minute, why does this particular contradiction exist? Look, it's a fair and operative question. It is an important question. And if you're going to make this case, again, Maddow doesn't care about this because Maddow is paid not to care about this. Ultimately, she's a shill for the Democratic Party and she's a propagandist. But why are you so apt to follow this narrative and follow these stories? Because understand, are you telling me that of all the issues in our elections, whether it's the ability for parties, for the most part, to gerrymander seats, whether interstate cross-check, where they can cross people off particular, off the roads, for that matter, whether it's eliminating certain polling locations in certain locations, using a gun license, but not a student license. Certainly, we have a lot of issues with our elections. Our elections are not the best in the world. Our elections are pretty damn miserable. So with this entire list of things that are defects, problems in our elections, even if you believe Russia did it, again, you need to show some level of smoking gun evidence if you're going to assert such a thing. But whatever, even if you follow the line, what does Russia have to do with any of those things? What does it have to do with any of those things? Certainly, those issues matter a hell of a lot more than something that may or may not have taken place by the Russian government. Also, shill Rachel Maddow did not give you any indication that the German government cleared Russia of election meddling. She's never going to bring that up on her show, by the way. Yeah, this is weird to me, and ultimately, you need to reconcile your belief in your party and your belief in some of these people, including this shill right here, with contradictions in the behavior that these people take. Certainly, there's a big deal. And beyond that, you're the Democratic Party. You're supposed to represent the 99%. At no point are you addressing income inequality. You're not addressing poverty. You're not getting out of bed in the morning trying to figure out how to give people health care, figuring out how to cover schools. You're not getting out of the bed in the morning to figure out how to deal with any of the root causes of the problems that plague our society. What gets you out of bed in the morning, the only thing you can talk about, the only thing that party can talk about, is Russia. Something they do not have smoking gun evidence over. The Democratic Party right now, Rachel Maddow, right now, for the most part, is towing the same line as Dick Cheney. Is an attack that may or may not have taken place by the Russian government an act of war? They're talking about this for a nuclear nation. So you need to understand what we're talking about. This is not minor. This is not nothing. This is actually a big damn deal. If one of these guys gets in the office, what is the policy going to be with regards to Russia, a nuclear-powered nation? These guys have been fomenting this stuff. They've been fomenting this stuff not because there's any there, not because there are any legs to it, but specifically for the opposite reason. because it's a non-story. They're using this non-story to bury actual issues. The Democratic Party, just like the Republican Party, cannot really deal with any real issues. They have to dwell in identity politics. They have to dwell in ridiculous stories. Any real issue that they take up that will help the American public will adversely affect their donors. Now, Princeton came out with a study essentially saying this country is an oligarchy because what the people want, legislation-wise, shows no relationships at all to the laws that these people pass. The point I'm making to you is you're being scammed. You're being scammed as much as the Republican Party. Brand Trump, that whole not hope and change, make America great again. Trump got that from Obama. It's the exact same thing. Brand Obama, hope and change, was a marketing slogan. There was no there. There was no reality to it. You fell for scam. The arguments that they use to entice you are specifically tailored to entice you. They're not necessarily there to be the actual issues that they want to discuss. The actual issues, their ends, the thing that they're trying to accomplish. That's a means to an end. The argument is a means to an end. It's just the coding that they put on a particular thing to get you wrapped up into a particular story. In this particular case, they are using Russia over and over and over again because they don't want to have the conversation about what's wrong with their party. This woman, for the most part, is backing up a party, a dumpster fire of a party, that when asked over and over and over again, what do you represent? What does your party stand for? In no way could come up with an actual answer to that question. Luminaries, like that crook, Donna Brazil, like the other crook, Schultz, he's not a crook, it's the one hollering about his values, Tom Perez. None of these people. He's the DNC chair, and he couldn't even come up with an answer. What does the Democratic Party stand for? And to this party that does not know what they stand for, or at the very least cannot honestly say what they stand for, because if they did, they would have to be talking about their donors. And they're not going to make that conversation. Wake up. Wake up. You're being had. You're absolutely being had. You're being used. They're using this Russian thing to create division in the society itself. They can't talk about real issues because at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is still that same corporate, empty party that was discussed in the Podesta leaks, that screwed over Sanders, that was out there murdering civilians by the thousands, that is over here trying to foment a war with Russia, that literally talked about giving a man that they call the goddamn apocalypse unfettered authority to attack Iran. These are contradictions between what the party says and what the party does. I have no expectation of integrity for anybody. They're incentivized by the money that they get to behave a particular way and to essentially function shamelessly. I have a higher expectation of you, John Q. Public. Recognize the contradictions. Ask the pertinent question. Why on earth do these contradictions exist? And what in the world do these contradictions actually mean with regards to what this party actually stands for? I know you don't want to think you're being scammed. Nobody does. But there's something to say about honesty. There is no honesty here at all. Zero. And even if there was something to it, this solves no issue. It addresses no problem. It doesn't get to the heart of anything. It is there purely as filler. That's it. Here's a shiny object. Pay attention to the shiny object. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain that's screwing you over and putting money in our pocket. That's off the agenda. That's not to be talked about. Russia? Yeah, shows like her is going to talk about that all day. Alright guys, if you like the content, feel free to like, share, and of course, feel free to comment. I'm also on Patreon right now, so again, if you want to support the work, have at it. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one, guys. And Debbie, again, I am so sorry that Yuckmouth had her name in her mouth. It's a sad, sad thing.